Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Mobilecast. We've taken the last month or so off, taken some vacation, done some traveling, getting ready for the holidays. Thanksgiving we went through, and Hanukkah, and we have Christmas coming up. But I am lucky to have my next guest here, Ben Haines, who is the CIO of Pabst. Previously he was the CIO of Pabst. So Ben, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Great to be here. So as you said, I guess a long and illustrious career in the CPG space, and I spent 9 years actually at Red Bull before Pabst, and looking to, I guess, change up IT a bit and get out of the old world of IT into this new world we need to be in.
So they try and throw you out of a space capsule really high up, and that's when you move to Pabst, or?
Yeah, I'm afraid of heights.
I can understand. It's all you have is a parachute and a lot of free fall. It's a long way down. So let's actually talk a little bit about Pabst. So you were telling me one of your stories about how you guys basically saved the Twinkie.
Yes.
And everybody knows here Hostess pretty much declared bankruptcy, and Pabst bought some of their factories, and that ripping you hear in the background is Ben trying to, rip up a couple of pieces of paper here and distract me, but that's okay. We actually have video going for this one, and you can't see his face right now. But yeah, you guys, Pabst brought Hostess, and I know you went in there, and Hostess was a little bit behind the times when it came to mobile and cloud and everything else. Why don't you give us a little hint about what that looked like?
Yeah, it was actually unfortunately similar to Pabst as well. So it was kind of easy, except extreme speed was needed to get things moving. So the owners of Pabst, with another private equity group, bought Hostess, and we had about 3 weeks' notice before the company was formed and officially out of bankruptcy, and to get things moving very, very quickly. So it was a bit of fun. I don't think a lot of people would call it fun, but fun to get things happening. And look, they were very, very traditional, everything on premise, BlackBerries to everyone in the company. And I had exactly the same at Pabst when I took over. And so, I looked at how do I get things moving quickly, and defaulted to some cloud solutions that I knew and had already implemented, and we got things up and running very quickly.
And how did you bring mobile into it? I know you mentioned they started with BlackBerries. Yeah,
so probably best to talk more about Pabst at the start, because we had probably 180 mobile devices that were issued, very traditional company-issued BlackBerries. And by the time I got there, the CEO at the time, he had his iPad, and head of marketing had their iPhone, and, a few other marketing crew had their iPhones. And I walked in the door, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So how are you securing that? And they looked at me funnily. And I said, well, if your device gets stolen, what happens? And they basically said, well, I'll go to AT&T and get a new one. So when I explained to the CEO the concept of, his email being on device without a PIN code, without encryption, without all these other things, it kind of raised some awareness around what we need to do on that. And then we had the other side of it was everyone wanted the latest and greatest, and so BlackBerry wasn't cutting the mustard. We had Bez server, obviously. We had on-premise Exchange. It was falling over. I think it was Exchange 2003. So we needed a big rip and replace to replace Exchange and upgrade it. And so I actually went to Mass 360 as a MDM option because I was pushing cloud very heavily and cloud only. And very quickly set up two policies, one company owned, because we couldn't get rid of the Verizon contract straight away. They take a good 2 years to cycle through. but set up a policy that people coming in straight away were BYOD, so we didn't start any new contracts. So you handled that, that infrastructure side of it and the contractual side. And as people wanted to move to iPhones or Android, they could. Funnily enough, it was literally 1 to 100 Android to iPhone by the time I left. So just put in two basic policies. One was, company owned, we'll wipe everything when your device is lost or stolen. The other one was employee owned, and we'll just wipe little pieces of the data and roll it out. And so then when I got to Hostess, we did the same thing, because coming out of the bankruptcy, we didn't want to get into contracts and everything. So everyone just started with their phones and did the BYOD.
So Hostess is mostly BYOD. Now, was Pabst also BYOD, or Pabst was the were you moving them to BYOD, or they started?
By the time I left, 100% BYOD.
Tablets as well?
Yes. Yep.
Now, did you guys give a stipend or pay part of the bill, or how you guys worked that?
Yeah, so we did for a cell phone, we did a one-time $200 for a device. So if a new employee comes in, you get $200, and then a stipend. It was probably around $150 if you're a full field-based employee. So no office phone. It was like $150. Now, that had to cover data as well as your cell plan, and no overages, anything like that. It was all on you. Break to the device, it was all on you. So, if you get your insurance in that $150, that's good,
$150 will buy you a lot of minutes and a fair amount of data. So
it will. And so I was really comfortable with that, because that's a decent amount of money. And part of that was driven coming off of Verizon, because they are the most expensive. And they nickel and dime you on, if you want to do tethering, it's $20 just for the privilege of tethering, all the junk they do around that. When I went to Hostess, they'd had a big relationship with Sprint, and they had some crazy, ridiculous, cheap stuff going on with Sprint. But the problem with Sprint is you can't just have Sprint. And that's actually the problem with all telcos these days. You can't just have one, because if you want to go overseas, you probably should, you need more of the AT&T, GSM based. Verizon, I know, has that option. But you basically end up with 3 different carriers, right? So that's where BYOD really helps.
And so in reality, if you look at, you had a BYOD program, but if you were on a phone, you had a full stipend for both bill and your first device. So you kind of paid for everything from there. How did you do it with tablets?
That was a personal choice. So I allowed the data plan, so sharing data across your phone. So if AT&T, you can have, for an extra $20, you can have data available on your tablet. So if that was under your $150, not a problem.
And did you guys buy did you guys buy the tablets, or did they still? Okay, they still. And was there a stipend for that, or no?
Nope, no. That was a pure choice. I looked at it, and the reality was we couldn't re-engineer enough of our processes to be suitable for tablet only fast enough. And so when you're buying we were buying $700-800 HP laptops. You almost have to double your cost if you're going to support a tablet, right? So if you want a decent iPad, probably $600, gets you 16 gig type of out the door Wi-Fi. Then you put support on that. So I looked at it like, I can't justify doubling my cost for that productivity. So everyone has a cell phone. Let's push to that, and the tablet's your choice.
I think it's great the way you actually looked at it, because a lot of people are, moving to devices without actually looking at their use cases and what they have and how quickly they can move from one to the other.
Well, we went through that exercise at Red Bull, and luckily Red Bull, I had a bit of money. At Pabst, I didn't. And
one makes energy drinks, one makes beer,
Well, yeah, sugar water and hops, I guess. But Yeah, interesting stuff we did at Red Bull is we really went hard on re-engineering a process, and we got a long way down the path of making that usable, and I think by now they've actually got it pretty well buttoned up. But as you know, the issue coming with tablets is actually creation, and so you walk into it. We're working with sales and marketing. You walk into an account. We got the basics, so you have a standard presentation. You want to change the name of the company and put their logo in you're presenting to. That's cool. You could do that on a tablet. But if you want to create a presentation with multiple graphs and data points and all of that, that's not the platform you do it. So then you've got to say, the discussion with the sales team was, do you want to centrally manage and staff an administration function to create presentations for your field sales team? So you have to go through all of that type of re-engineering and discussion. So by the time I got to Pabst, I'd done it, and they were very quick discussions.
So let's take that and move to where you are now. So now you're at Box, and Box is very much based upon using your content where it is, and whatever device you happen to have, and they've come up with a bunch of editing tools and everything else for actually doing stuff on your tablet or your smartphone. Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk generally about Box first, and then we'll talk about kind of some of the stuff that you're actually doing there as CIO.
So I got the dubious honor of being the first CIO here. So about 1,000 people now, and it's really awesome because I have the best of breed tools that I was implementing or in the process of implementing at Pabst. They're already here. So I've walked in, and instead of having to deal with all the legacy, removing data centers and servers, I'm into immediately how do we optimize the best of breed apps that we have. 99.9% cloud-based apps. I don't think I've got an on-premise app.
I would hope not, being what you guys do, but
no, exactly. So we do. We have, obviously we have our data centers, but that runs our product. It doesn't run the corporate side of things. So I only look after corporate and the enterprise, and dealing with all the cloud-based apps is pretty cool. So a lot of work. Looking at data integration is the start of what I'm looking at. So integrating data across these applications, so Workday, Salesforce, NetSuite, those types of things, and identity management as well as we grow and scale and go international. So really starting at some foundational stuff and, moving really quickly.
So, this brings up some interesting challenges that lots of people are having in companies that don't have the benefit of being, 99.9% cloud. So, you have 1,000 people. While a lot of them are there in San Francisco, you are actually, you're moving into Europe. You got a bunch of people in New York and a few other places and salespeople who travel. And how do you guys deal with things like identity management and, two-factor authentication and, protecting your own stuff?
Yeah, so that's probably that 0.1% that's annoying me that I need to remove. But we started with Active Directory, so you have to have an AD server on premise, and we're moving away from that. And we have Okta in place for our single sign-on and federation. And so as we mature into that, we can start doing more with Okta in the identity space, because really they started as single sign-on, right, in federation. And so as we can get more metadata up into Okta, we can start to remove the reliance on AD, and AD will just become another source generally to manage Windows PCs. That's really all you need them for. And if I can get away from that, I will. But we're moving. We have a lot more Mac users than Windows as well. So pushing AD into the background is a big deal for us, and then getting everything out in the cloud-based services. And you still have to deal with imaging and all of that stuff, but most of that now we're moving out the door, which is really cool. So we use Google for our email, so we have that. We have obviously our box product, we don't have file servers. They don't exist here. It just doesn't happen.
It would be a shame if they did.
It would be. I would have had some interesting discussions if we had that. So it's kind of cool. So yeah, everything is in our product from a document standpoint. And in email, we have our box application. We have MDM here, but it's very lightweight. And I've actually been holding back from doing a traditional MDM solution here because it feels like MDM has really just become table stakes and pretty basic management right now, whereas I want to get into the application management and the information management. So instead of putting in a traditional MDM solution right now, we're satisfied with, we have two-factor on our Google account, so you have to get a special key to get into to set up your email, and then that using ActiveSync, that gives us, we can ensure our pins on the device, we can ensure the device is encrypted, and we can remote wipe. And so they're kind of the basics of MDM, right? So we're okay at that point, and we're really looking at what is the future of MDM, which is really MAM and MIM, and looking at that rather than putting in. They're almost legacy. I mean, it's hard to call, I guess, Mobile Iron and AirWatch a legacy, but in the MDM space, they kind of are, right? It's BES 2.0.
Well, yeah, they're transitioning to what we like to call EMM, or Enterprise Mobility Management.
Yeah, sorry, that's what the word I was looking for. Cool.
And they're kind of the founders of that movement, and then you see people like Microsoft and everybody else moving that way. So you guys, Box is obviously content management on any device. What's the device layout look like there once you get away from PCs and laptops?
Yeah, so we're 100% BYOD. We do actually give our sales guys iPad minis, mostly just for demos and stuff like that. It's really funny. You can see generally that the Android space is really more engineers and tech ops guys that want to, mess around with it and do things. And then you have more the sales and marketing, and I guess people like me who I don't have time to tinker anymore in the iOS space. It feels like it's almost a 50-50 split between the devices, maybe heading more towards iOS still. But 100% BYOD. So, we've had discussions about should we get into supplying phones and all of that, and I'm not a fan. It's not something I want to get into because it requires headcount. And the only reason to do it is if you really want 100% control over the device. And the reality for us is you'll never keep up with the type of devices people want, and they're just going to use their own anyway. So,
well, being that I was with you when the iPad Air came out, and it took me all of about 3 seconds to convince you to stop on your way home to actually pick one up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was kind of, it's a funny story. We're sitting, Ben and I were at a conference, and he was leaving in the morning, and he said, "Nah, I'm not going to pick up an Air. I'm going to wait a couple weeks, whatever else." And we're sitting there talking. I said, "You want one. It's smaller, it's lighter." He goes, "Well, what are the specs?" And we look at the specs, and I'm not even at the airport. And I get a note. I stopped on my way to the office and picked up an iPad Air. So,
yeah, and I'm a tragic. I got the mini Retina as well, which is what I'm using for this call right now. It's really hard if you're on a Retina on your phone and you go back and you look at a regular iPad and you see the blurry lines on your emails. I can't handle it, man. So, so I'm liking both.
It's interesting. I have the mini Retina and I have the iPad Air, and what I find funny is I actually tend to use the iPad Air more often, just because the shrinkage and width of the device and how light it is. I just like the bigger screen. It's really nice to be able to sit there and actually see not have to worry about the size of the type and everything else. And I think, it makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I do. I end up using the Mini more because it feels more it literally fits in my back pocket. So when I'm out and about, and I use the
well, that's just because you have big pants, but that's beside
the point. I make sure I buy big pockets.
So if you're around Ben, he will pull out his Mini out of his back pocket. So you have a split of 50-50. You're doing content management. You've talked a little bit about the fact that you're moving to Okta to handle the identity management and the like. What are you guys seeing as far as breakage and everything else? And especially the BYOD and with your Salesforce and all that. I mean, I know for us, we're seeing less than 1%. Actually, we're seeing more like 0.01%.
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing a lot, and it's really interesting because I'm still kind of new. I'm still getting a feel for things, so I'm looking at way more help desk tickets than I normally would. But that's how you kind of see the pulse of what's happening. So I'm scanning tickets, and it's kind of funny. I'm just about to talk to my guys about it because most of the tickets I see are, I've got a new iPhone or I've got a new Samsung. Most of it's a new iPhone right now. How do I get it set up? And so we're still going to make that setup easier. But I think maybe it's a symptom of the holiday seasons. I'm not sure, but people here are pretty quick to move to new devices, and that's why I 100% want to keep a BYOD because we'll just never keep up. But yeah, not seeing a lot of breakage at all.
I mean, when they come down the slide, for those of you that don't know, Box has a pretty much a 2-story slide in their front lobby. You actually have to sign a waiver to go down it. But you mean when they come down that slide, the phones don't come flying off?
Nope. Have zero breakage so far.
Well, that's excellent. That's excellent news for that. So, you've done some stuff internally. What are you guys seeing as far as when you talk to customers who are using Box and how they're using it? Because Box is somewhat moving towards MIM, mobile information management. There's content. You guys have moved into content creation. Yep. You guys have moved into content editing. You want to talk a little bit about that, Ben?
Yeah, and we have the device pinning as well, so you can start securing your data across devices. So obviously seeing a lot of traction in what I did in the Red Bull space with mobile sales teams, mobile marketing teams, and mobile executives and everything. So it's very, very broad. I think the really cool stuff is where people are customizing applications and they're really designing stuff to solve their workflow and their business processes, and they're putting Box in as the content supplier for that, which is, it's really great to see, that type of development, because the reality for us is, while I guess we were brought up in file share and collaboration, the real value is in the platform and extending that platform to lots of different devices. So there's some great, I think it was SunGuard. They're
they're DR disaster.
No, it's a I forget the name. They do rental equipment, and so they have field people, and they're showing images of the equipment they want to rent while they're on site, and they link that into the inventory system, so they cut down days of turnaround on some equipment because they could see it was there, book it, and get it shipped to sites and stuff. So there's some really interesting use cases like that we're seeing. And then also integrating, when you look at, and this is something we do here, and I'm pushing also, is getting into the document centralization and management. So, if you have Workday, you're not going to store documents there, you store it in Box and link to it. And same with Salesforce. So we start embedding into those platforms, but you're keeping your document management in one place, and then also, if you don't have a license for Salesforce, you can still see some documents or see the contracts and things like that. So there's really a lot going on. We have a new mobile iOS app, which I think we announced at Boxworks, and we have the beta. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it, but it's really cool.
Well, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop you.
So that's what it looks like.
So he's showing. So to my listeners, he's showing me. It doesn't help you see anything.
No, but some really, really great functionality coming out in iOS, and we have upgraded the Android application as well. And I actually struggle to keep up with what we're doing here, and we are the early adopters as well. So I'm looking at how do we help spread internally these new applications and start helping with the beta testing more. It's like we've always done it, but we need to do it a bit broader.
So more of the Microsoft dog fooding.
Yeah, a lot more of the dog fooding, and we are. So part of my role is that I am the ultimate customer of our platform, and where I have to be working through our processes and using our platform as much as we can, because as we now are getting to scale and we're international, we have the same issues as all the companies. So if they can't solve them for me, then how are we going to solve it for the external customers? So where a lot of what I'm doing is help drive the product and move things forward.
Yeah, and you guys actually just released some really new functionality in the last week, if I recall. Some interesting enterprise stuff. Yeah. So we upgraded the administration features and some more security stuff in there. The preview is now live, the new preview experience, and we have the metadata and the workflow, and there's nicer names for it. I have to, it's one of those things you've been using it for a few months in beta, so you just use it. But more information management and starting to be able to trigger documents based on specific workflows and stuff. So so really cool stuff going on. Excellent. We only have a couple more minutes. Because I promised you I wouldn't keep you really more than half an hour. So
it's lunchtime for me here. That's all.
Yeah, but you also, I've been there. You have your own kitchen and all that, so I'm not too worried about you actually eating.
No, it's actually cool here. It's on Fridays. We every Friday we do an all hands lunch. So literally everyone down, and we have a massive lunchroom, and we have generally Aaron Levy or Dan, our CIO, will have some announcements and stuff, and we spend the hour with updates and everything. It's pretty cool culturally.
Yeah, I was actually there on a Friday.
You were?
When that happened, although of course I wasn't allowed to sit in on that because there's some proprietary information. But,
I was going to say, did they let you in?
Well, they gave me some food. The food was good, but then they made me go to a conference room.
Yeah.
It's an interesting culture there. Having walked around your office and everything else, you have the slide. You guys have scooters and everything else, but you have a lot of collaborative rooms, and you notice the Macs and all. But how much of it do you see people actually using their, when they're not testing, using their mobile devices versus their PC? Are they truly picking the device that's convenient? Are they picking the device that's the best device for the job?
Yeah, I think they're really picking what's the best device for the job here. And what has been really interesting for me coming in is because of the work I did at Pabst, especially mobilizing everyone. And at Pabst, I had 85% of my workforce was remote, like they didn't set foot in the office. Here, we've probably got the inverse of that. And as we're growing, we're only just starting to get to more field-based workforce and a more mobile workforce. So I was actually surprised that we didn't have as many mobile applications in place that I would have thought. And so I'm working towards that. And it's like I said, it's been interesting because everyone is in headquarters for now. And then we have a group of people in San Francisco, and then we have 100 in Europe. And then we've got, a few people scattered around the place. And so, yes, we have our Box app and we have our email. But I came in thinking, all right, we've got Workday, cool. I should be able to go on my Workday app and do some stuff, and they've never enabled it. And I'm like, hold on a minute, so. And we're now starting to do more with Salesforce because our field salespeople are out and about. So there's going to be a big push next year to really start mobilizing and helping people. And for instance, we just put in Cooper last week, and the first thing I'm mandating is that it has to be usable on my cell phone, because even though I'm in the office, I literally am not at my desk. I spend maybe 30 minutes at my desk, because I'm always in meetings and talking to people. So I want to be able to, and I was annoyed because we had NetSuite, and NetSuite is pretty much all, legacy solution. I'd have to approve a PO. I'd have to go to my desk, log in. Remember, we hadn't had it integrated to Okta yet. Log in and then go click yes to approve a purchase order. It's craziness, right? So now we have Cooper, so we're really pushing the mobile applications and a lot of, what we call GSD, so getting shit done, basically, is our motto around here. So mobile is going to be huge for us next year.
Okay, so last question. By the way, I think it's great listening to, from the inside what you're doing with the workforce versus what Box does. But, okay, So last question. Was it the free beer, the free Red Bull, or is it the free food at Box? Which was better?
That's a tough one. So I don't drink beer, so my neighbours liked me when I was at Pabst. That's for sure. No, look, culturally, this is actually really close to what Red Bull was in the early days, because Red Bull's a crazy startup for many, many years. So, really liking the culture here. It's a lot faster. The beer world's pretty stagnant. Really liking it, and it's a great mix of everything.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you joining me for a half hour here on the return of the Mobilecast. This has been a lot of fun. We're going to get you again next year after you've been there 6 or 7 months, see what's changed and all.
Sounds good.
And in the meantime, everybody, thanks for listening. Tell me what you want to hear, what you want to see. We got some great shows coming up. We'll probably do a prediction show for 2014, get a few people on, and a couple surprises in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the new year. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.